The rural cultists were still backing away from me as I approached them. Well, they weren't technically threatening me if they were backing away, even if they had machetes in hand. So I looked at the house that the woman had come from, and I noticed that the screen door of her little shotgun shack was open. So I stepped in, and I reloaded my gun and had it raised, and I had my side pocket flashlight that STARS agents come with on the ready. And I looked in, and then I noticed that under a big cross in this area where you entered, there was an empty baby's crib. And across from that looked like a child's bedroom. And down that hall looked what appeared to be a marital bedroom. And then I looked into the small corner where a table was. And then I noticed a man hunched over a table with a bottle in hand. And I raised my gun and said, "All right, Farmer Brown, wake up. Morning, sweetheart. Put the bottle down." And he still didn't move. So I came over to him and I noticed there was blood on the table. And in front of him, there was a letter. And I read the letter. And it said, "Dear Carrie." Carrie must have been the woman that I shot. But, "Dear Carrie, I'm so sorry for doing this to you. And I hope that you'll forgive me and the Lord will forgive me for what I've done. But I can't bear being apart from our little ones, nor what we did to our poor children. I hope that you can find comfort, and I hope to see you on the other side. Signed, Thomas." Tom, what happened to the children? That's what I was wondering, and the guy was holding a bloody knife where he had slit both his wrists wide open. Man. And right beside the table there was a little stove with, what appeared to be a radio on top of the shelf above the stove. And then I used my STARS radio to get signal with that radio, and I turned it on, and then I heard the deep, dark voice of what was evidently their leader or something like that. And it said, "My children, angels from hell have ascended upon our paradise. They harbor the Antichrist, and we have captured this woman. And she will tell us what we need to know before we slaughter her." And I could hear Mia's cries over the radio. And I knew what I had to do. So I turned on my dispatch radio that STARS gave me, and then I told him, okay guys, remember that location that we were said to investigate? Well, I investigated, and there's some bad shit going on. They killed the pilot, Jim, and they kidnapped Mia. We have to stop them. I request a full convoy here, a full battalion. Over. And they said, "Roger that, but it's going to be just a little while before we can get over there. But we are sending trucks and multiple helicopters to your position." And I said, "All right, thank you." And then I stepped out of that house, and I appeared to be in what was a neighborhood. And then I saw from one of the houses, there was what appeared to be a light coming from there. And so, with my gun raised, I I burst through the door and noticed that there was indeed light. So evidently they had some source of electricity. And right on the table there was some shucked corn. They must have been growing some corn. And I noticed that they all had machetes, and they had a barn in what appeared to be a slaughterhouse, so maybe that's how they make their food. And then I noticed that there was also a note right next to the shucked corn. And so I read it, and I really wished I hadn't. It said, Our dear glorious leader, the Lord continues to bless me with visions from heaven. I was cleaning the blood from my child's room, and then with a white flash, I was given a spectacular vision. A wheel appeared before me in the sky. And it looked like there were little arms inside the wheel, but I mistook them. It turned out those arms inside the wheel were hard, throbbing cocks. And I became wet on myself after looking at them. And okay, yep, I've heard enough of that, and I immediately slammed it down. I was like, okay, I am not reading any more of that. Okay, more of that. Well, these people are, they crazy, that's for sure. And then I stepped out of that other little wooden house, and I noticed in front of me there was a little road leading towards the barn, and then there was a road leading towards a field. I was curious to see what was inside that barn, so I came to it again with my gun drawn, and then I heard a voice I'll never forget. Book of the Lamb, spider-eyed lamb, book of the Lamb slain. They will come down from earth, and it is our job to devour them. It is our duty to burn them to hell. And I was thinking, who said that? Somebody there? And I knew that there was somebody, but it was dark. I couldn't see much. So then I stepped in the barn, and then I noticed what appeared to be a lantern in the upper section of the barn. There was a ladder that led to a hayloft, and it was there that I saw a lantern. And then I looked to the back of the barn, and I really wish I hadn't. Because there was the pilot's body slaughtered in a barrel. His throat had been slit wide open, his clothes had been taken off, and he had been placed in a bloody water barrel. Oh, that poor pilot. He was so polite. And then I descended on the ladder. I ascended, and then I was in the hayloft. And from the hayloft, I saw what appeared to be, I smelled it first, and it was a rotting smell. Maybe they should have prayed for some refrigeration, because, oh God, down below I could see in the stalls where cattle and horses once were, they were all slaughtered, and there were flies buzzing around them. And I thought, from a farmer's perspective, why the fuck would you do that? Why? Because now you've slaughtered all your food at once. So now you're not going to have any meat in the future. So you're only going to be able to eat corn and whatever the hell else you grow. Wouldn't want to live here. And then I looked over at where the lamplight was coming from, and it was definitely from a lantern. But then I looked, and then I noticed that there was somebody's hand right near it, but they weren't moving, and the hand looked gray, and the man beside it had been dead for several hours. He had also cut his wrist open and left a suicide note. And it was a lot sadder than anyone else's I've read. It just said, "Our leader is taking us all to hell with him. I can't be part of this anymore." Man, who is this crazy guy that I keep hearing about? Who is he? And so I went down again, and then I looked through the wire mesh door of the barn, and then I saw one of the skinniest, sickly looking women I've ever seen in my life. And she had long black hair and a pale face and a thin black robe with a hood over her face, and she said, "God, you want him, you'll have him, and he'll send you to hell." And so I ran out of the barn and then pointed my gun at her, and she raised what appeared to be a pickaxe with a rosary on it, and she raised it and then started backing away. Yeah, this whole place is crazy. So I climbed back in the hayloft, and then using the lantern and the hay, I set it on fire, and I was going to wait for that barn to burn. And when the barn did burn, the helicopters would know where to land. So I jumped down, and then I continued walking to what appeared to be a wheat field. Now, it wasn't a big wheat field, but it produced plenty of wheat, that's for sure. And then I noticed, in the wheat field, there were cabins. And beside the cabin, there was a campfire right in the wheat field. And then there was a man beside the campfire strumming a guitar and singing the creepiest praise song I've ever heard in my life. It was like, "I'm gonna hide you in the Lamb, hide you in Ezekiel's blood." Yeah, it was creepy. And then I noticed that there was a man sitting on the porch in the field, and he was rocking back and forth, and he had a bloody machete. And I raised my gun, and I was going to question him. "Have you guys seen a woman come through here? She was wearing the same clothes I was wearing, and she was being dragged. Have you seen her?" And they said, "Well, I suppose you are from the same entity in hell." And then I heard the man beside me get up, and then I turned to him, and he had his guitar raised as if to club me with it, and then I shot him, and he fell. And then I heard him running throughout that swift swish I heard of the man from the porch running towards me with his machete raised, and then I shot him dead too. I don't remember how many people I killed that night. And it does haunt me that I've taken lives, but it was either them or me. And sometimes I do feel sorry for him. But I took the fire that was from the campfire, and I grabbed one of the logs that were still on fire, and I threw it in the field. And then, thank God, I heard the familiar and then I saw the helicopters coming down from where I'd set the barn on fire. And there were 3 of them now. And there were STARS agents descending down as if they were angels from the sky. And I ran to them and I said, okay, thank God you're here. All right, okay, I think I know where Mia is. She is in that church that is dead ahead. We need to start running towards there, okay? And then, and then I saw the white flash again. And then I screamed. And then it was all dark. It was all dark. So I took out my goggles, the night vision goggles that I was given because I was going on a night mission, and then I turned it on, and then I noticed that I wasn't in a field or near a barn. It looked like I was in a room with a carpeted floor and with desk, like little school desk and a chalkboard, and then I thought, oh no, I'm in school again. How am I in school again?